Okay. Okay, hello, hi. Hello. Okay, now I should have sound. But now what I'm lacking is the image. But I should be able to fix this really soon. Yeah, this is okay. Perfect. Yeah, I'm in a different place, so I have to adjust a few things. But nevertheless, I think we are ready. Let me share this screen where I was announcing the stream for today. And what I plan to do is to do some unit tests for blocks. So where do we start? So I'm going to start sharing the plan of what are we going to test. My idea is that we test this. If we go to the block editor, there's a tutorial here, build your first block. And this block is a great example of the things that you can do, because it includes like different attributes, it includes an inspector control. So in the UI we can adjust like the different settings, the different values for the block to operate. It also includes like a static render and dynamic render, so there's a markup that is saved in the database, and also there is a dynamic render done for the front end. So what we're going to do is to apply unit tests for this block. I'm going to use a scale draw to with my explanation. So let's start with a broader testing blocks. Like a very generic idea. I think there are two main ways to test blocks. We can apply unit tests. We can apply end tests. That's the difference between each. So the unit tests, when we talk about blocks, refer to testing the unit, testing the block in an isolated environment. So test the unit, the block in a case in an isolated environment. So here what we will test is that the different pieces that can form a block work as expected. In the case of a block, I would say that it's like something that's happening with audio, unless it's just me. Floyd, can you confirm if you can hear me? Because I'm here that the audio output is okay. Well, let me know if this message was like a few minutes ago. Something just happened with your audio, unless it's just me. It is too low, or you can't hear me at all. Can you please confirm the issue? Let me check my settings in the meantime. Here the properties, this is okay. This is not muted. Check again the audio settings here. We go to sound. The input is the sensor, maybe it's a bit low. And the output is also sensor that is stream. So here it should be. Okay, I think everything okay. I think everything should be fine now. Let me know if you can hear me at all. Vamos, Juanma. Hey, Van. Hi. Nice to see you here. Can you hear me well? Because this sounds a lot better now. Okay, yeah. I just unplugged again, so that's like the typical solution. Okay, so I was doing like an introduction of testing, and I was saying that in the way I see, there are like, when we talk about blocks, there are like two main ways of testing blocks. We have unit tests and we have end-to-end tests. The unit tests, and that's the type of tests we're going to do today, they test the unit. In our case, it's going to be the block. But also, we are going to test like the different pieces of a block. And when I talk about pieces, I mainly refer to the edit component and to the save component, right? Because when we register a block, we have like two main components, and there is a main React component that is the React component that is displayed in the block editor, and that's the edit component, and that's where we usually where we display like the inspector control options, the toolbar options, and all the logic for the behavior we want to have in the editor. And then the save component is the component we use to define the markup of the block that is going to be saved in the database. So when we are testing blocks, we need to test that these two components behave as expected. So the output they generate is the one we expect. And what we're going to do is to write tests to automate that. So we are going to write some code to test other code. We are going to write some tests to check that the edit component of our block and the save component of our block behave as they should. Okay. There's another test that we can add, more generic, be like the registration of the block. This is an easy one. This is the first one we would do, but I think these three things is they are a good starting point to test any block. So we can check that the block is properly registered using the same functions that the block editor is going to use to register these blocks, and then we can check the edit component and the save component separately, and we can test that they do what they should. We will see what does this mean in a minute. And then we have the end-to-end tests where we test the block in a more realistic environment. So here what we do is actually launch WordPress instance. We add the block and we check how the block behaves in the context we want to use the block. For example, in a page, in a blog post, or even in a theme. And we can automate all the process, all the tests that we would do manually. We can automate that. We can create a test that open the admin, goes to the post editor, insert the block, set some parameters for the block, save the block. We can check how is displayed in the block editor, how the block is displayed in the front end, and all of that in a real WordPress environment. And we could also test how our block behaves in different versions of WordPress, different versions of PHP. We could automate all of that. But I think that we can do another session for this end-to-end tests. So for now, I'm going to put this a bit hidden. So let's focus today on these unit tests. And what we're going to test, as I said, is this one, the block. Let me see. Yeah. The block that is explained here in this tutorial, in this build your first block tutorial. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open. Oops, no, I want the iTerm. I'm going to let me see. I have a projects folder, and then we have here. I have here a repository for the streams. Let me show you very quickly this one, where I have all the information for the streams that I have done so far this year, but also I have a projects folder where I'm storing all the projects that I work in my streams. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another folder here to contain the copyright block that is explained here. And this block can be, we have a template. So we are going to use this template to get the final block that is explained here. So this is all the process, but there is a template here we can use to get the whole block. So I'm going to, if I go to projects, copyright date block, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the name to add with tests. Okay. So this should create like a scaffold, all the structure of the block with all the content. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about this or something you would like me to explore? But in the meantime, what we can do is continue talking about this. How are we going to do these unit tests? Well, to test our blocks, we are going to use Jest, React, which is a library to test React apps. And because in the block editor is a big React application with different components that are being loaded, we can use this library. But this library is already available with the WP package. So if we go to the detailed information of this package, we can see here that there are a lot of available scripts for this package, and one of the commands, one of the subscripts that we have available is test unit.js. So when we launch this command, the WP scripts package is going to check. It's going to look for these files to be executed as test. So we can create a tests folder with this underscores. Then we can also create files with the .test.js suffix, or we can create a test folder. Okay. So in our case, what we are going to do is we are going to create a test folder. Okay, we have this, and we are going to go to copyright with tests, and let's open Cursor. Let's open Cursor. So okay, I'm going to change the theme because I think for the streams it works better with a light theme. Let me know what you think. For now, I'm going to use these light themes until someone tell me that it works better with a dark theme. Okay, so we have what we have done. We have run createBlock package to scaffold all the structure of this block with the edit component, with the save component. And what we can do is very quickly, we need to run this block somewhere. So we have different ways. Good, I'm having sunglasses. Okay. Okay, let me know if this is this works. Do you prefer like the dark theme? I don't have a strong opinion, but I thought that maybe it's better for the screen, like the it can be read more clearly. Anyway, let me know your thoughts. So we need to run this block somewhere. We could use Studio by WordPress.com. We could use Docker with Adobe PM. We could use local. There's a quick way that I'm going to use right now that It's called mpx .vp. Now this is a package that I prefer dark, but it's good enough for the live. Not at all. Okay, perfect. Thanks for the feedback. Let me know. Let me know if this is still good. Yeah, maybe I can try dark theme in some other streams. I'm still experimenting. Yeah, I was saying that I'm going to use WP now to run this plugin that registers the block. This is a package that leverages WordPress Playground, and although this is not being maintained anymore, for the time being, it's good enough, and it's a very quick way to run a plugin if you don't need anything else. So yeah, for now, I think that we are going to use this, so we can quickly check this. So it has opened here in localhost. We have here our we should have here our plugin, copyright date block with tests, and now in the posts we should be able to run this, and this block should have some settings here, and we should be able to say, like, for example, this. If we save, we should see this. Perfect. So it works more or less as expected. And now what we can do here is we can start adding the commands we need to run the unit test. So let's do that here. For example, we could do this. I like to call this test unit. And what we can do is create here a folder called tests. Test. Is test or tests in plural? Let me check. The documentation is located in test folder in singular. So, okay. And here we can start adding our tests. So what we can do is start with a first file that we are going to call block registration dot test dot yes. Perfect. So we should have here available a set of functions to run tests. So we have yeah, this can be a good first test. I'm going to run this first, and then we can explain what this means. So if we run npm run test unit, yeah. So we have run our first test, or first test. It has gone to the test folder. It have looked for files with the test suffix, and it has run all the tests inside. So Jest provides these functions we can use to organize our tests. So describe is a way to group different tests. In this case, we can group different tests to check that the block is properly registered, and then we can add like different individual tests for the inside the group. There are a few ways to also isolate the test. So for example, if we want to run only one test, if we want to skip some tests, but we will check the later. I think that is only and skip, but yeah, we can try that later. And then we have the assertions. So with the unit tests, what we're going to do is to compare an expected behavior, an expected value, with the value we are getting. In this case, the assertion is true because we are expecting true to be true. In this case, this is a dummy assertion, but it's just to check that the tests are properly run. Okay, so let's start testing our block. And in order to test our block, we are going to import a set of methods from the WordPress blocks package. So we are going to import register block type and register block type and create block. Perfect. And we also need to import the metadata from the block.json. So what we can do for now is maybe just add a console log to check that we are getting properly the data from the block.json. Import okay, because yeah, we need to install this package, WordPress blocks. We need to install it, but only for the tests, because internally this package is handled in a different way. When we do imports from the JavaScript files we use for our block, internally is going to link that import to the .bp global package, so we don't really need to install that package, but for the tests we need to install it. So what we can do here, is to install it, but only in devel mode. So here in the package.json we have dependencies, which are the dependencies that are only used in development mode or in local development. So these dependencies are not going to be installed in production. And we can install packages directly in the dependencies using the flag D and WordPress blocks. Okay, and now that we have this, we should be able to run these tests. So let's import cannot find block.json. So we need to make sure that the path is correct. Here, yes, it's an src block.json. Okay. Yeah. So we have here the name of the block. Okay. So what we can do is to create the block. Okay, let's try to test this directly here. So if we go to edit post, and if we come here, inspect, and if we come here in the post editor, we have the WP global object that is used as the central storage facility for the packages. So we should have here the blocks package and all the different methods that are used with this package. And one of the methods should be how is it called? createBlock. createBlock. Okay, WP is not defined. Let me see if I reload this. WP, yeah, here. Blocks, and then create block. Okay, so this in the block editor we have like two bases for blocks. First, we register the blocks, and then when we insert a block in a post or in a page, there is a process of creating the block, and that creation of the block returns an object. So what we can do is to create the block. We can create the block because this block has already been registered. We can create this block and to check the object that is being returned. Yeah, so this is the object that is being returned. So what we can do is to check the some of the properties of this object. So in our test, what we can do is to call the create block. Well, we need to do two things. We need to register the block and then create the block. And with the output of the create block method, we can check a few things. Like, for example, we can check the name. That is the one we expect to have. And then we can check the attributes. That by default, it should be empty. So when we create the block without anything else, the attributes should be empty. We can also create the block with this method with attributes by passing a second parameter. Let's check a little bit. Let's say let's check the documentation of the create block package. So if we go to create block, in the WordPress blocks package, create block returns a block object given its type and attributes. So we can pass name, we can pass attributes, and then we can pass inner blocks. We are going to test the block using these two things. Okay, so let's go to our test, and what we can do is register the block. Register the block, in our case this is with the metadata we get from the block. metadata block, and here metadata block name, and then metadata block. So now the block is registered, and what we can do now is to create the block. And we can store the object that is returned by this method, createBlock. We can store it in a block constant, in a block variable. And now we can check different things. For example, when we don't pass any attributes, what we would expect is that block name is equal to metadata block name. This is a first test that we can do. Console log metadata name. Yeah. Perfect. So we have here our first test. What we can also check is that the block, the different attributes of the block are undefined when we don't pass anything, because in the block.json there are 3 attributes defined, but there is no default value. So if we create the block without specifying any initial values, these attributes should be undefined. So what we can do here is to expect that the fallback current year to be undefined, and the same with the rest of the attributes. So here we are starting to use some different assertions. If we go to the Jest documentation, here we should have let me see if the assertions are documented here. To be undefined, expect. Yeah, so these are called matchers. So we with this expect method, we can chain different matchers, and we can also apply that like modifiers like not, to be, whatever. But the idea of these methods is that they provide a more natural language to do comparisons. At the end, we could create like using logical operators, we could create these assertions, but this is a more natural way of doing these comparisons, and also it provides an easier way then to read the code and to understand what we are testing. But yes, as you can see here, there are several matchers. Right now we have used to be and to be defined and to be undefined. Yeah. And by the name you can very quickly get what they are testing. Okay. Perfect. So we have run this test, and now what we can do is to we can run and say it should handle all valid attributes. So now what we can do is to create the block here with initial values, and what we're going to test is that the object returned by createBlock return these values. And in order to do that, we can create here like a fake object const attributes that can be like this: fallback current year. Let's check fallback current year, type string, show starting year, type boolean, and starting year 2020 string. So what we can do is can create the block with the attributes. Here we were creating the block without attributes, but here we are creating the block with attributes. And then we are going to check that the well, cursor has already filled this code for me, which is great because we can go faster, but it has added like the right assertions. We are testing each one of the attributes, and they should contain the attributes I pass when I have created the block. Okay. But then there's one thing here that we need to take into account. One idea of the unit tests is that every test, every it is as isolated as possible. So we should do every test from a clean state, from a clean initial state. In this case, we have registered the block, but then we need to unregister the block. So what we should do here is to unregister the block after the test has finished. So we register the block, we do whatever we do, and then we unregister the block. And that process should be done in every test. We register the block, and then at the end we unregister the block. So we create environment, we do the tests we need, and then we clean all the things that we have registered, all the things that we have added. So the next test starts from scratch. Starts from a clean state. Okay, so we can run these tests and they are passing. So everything is going well. But here we are repeating these things, and with the unit tests and with Jest, we have some methods that we can execute every time there is an it. We can execute something before each it is executed and after each it is executed. And those methods are called beforeEach, and afterEach. So what we're going to do is that before each we are going to register the block, and after each it we are going to unregister the block. So we can remove this, we can remove this, we can remove this, and we can remove this. Perfect. So okay, I'm going to, maybe this can be and I can put this here, and if we run the tests, yeah, they have passed. Okay, so we have checked that the block is properly registered and that the block creation returns the expected values for the object that is returned by the createBlock method. What we can also check is that if we remember the quick test we did, here also yep. Okay, what we can check is that the block.json directly has these supports. For example, if we rely on these elements, what we can check directly is that the block.json contains some of these supports without creating any block. Yes, as a final test. So let's do this. Let's check. It should have correct block support configuration. No, in this case, what we're going to use is directly the metadata block. But what we can check here is that const supports equal metadata block, and what we can do is just check we can check all of them. We can check color background is false, color text is true. We can check that supports color background to be false, color text to be true, HTML to be false, and typography dot font size to be true. Yeah. So these supports are what enable this. So if we select this, we should have here some properties to alter the like the style of this block. For example, we can change the color. Yes, you can see we cannot change the background, but we cannot change the background color, but we can change the color of the text. Okay, we save. Perfect. Okay. Right. So here we have like a first test. Then the next thing that we can check is the edit component. Okay, so for the edit component, we are going to create another file called edit component.test.js. Great. Okay. Okay, Van. Yeah, thank you for being here. And yeah, the recording is going to be available in YouTube. So yeah, you can check the recording later. Thanks for being here. Okay, so we are going to check the edit component. The edit component is this one. And it does a lot of things. I'm going to remove, let me cursor helps me with this. Remove the comments. Okay, so this is our date component. This is our edit component, that it receives two props, the attributes and set attributes. So we read the attributes from the attributes object, and then we get the current year. So for our test, we need to mock some things here because we need to create an isolated environment, but also a controlled environment. We need to create a custom version of the classes, objects, and methods that are used by our edit component. So in this case, we need to mock the new date to make sure that it always returns the same value, so we can test accordingly. So this is one thing that we take into account for our test. Okay. Another thing that we have to mock is the libraries that are used by the edit component, and more specifically the elements from the libraries. So for example, we need to mock this function that is used for translations. We need to mock this component, we need to use this method, and we need to mock these components as well. So the idea is that we create like a very dummy version of these components, because we are not right now interested in the specific output or the specific behavior of these components. We just need to check that they are called properly, and that's all. Ideally, these components should also have their own tests. So I take care of my behavior, and these components take care of testing their own behavior. Okay, so let me okay, so this object that we create here with createBlock, attributes, name, client ID, class name. We can let me see if in okay, in the edit, this is going to be props. Okay, but before doing this, I'm going to console log props. And now what I'm going to do is to run npm start. Perfect. So okay, so these are the props that are received by our edit component. So what we can check is that these props are so we can render this component passing these props, and in order to render this component, we can use the let me see, testing library React. Testing so let me see, render. npm read the docs, and here I should have here the render no, quick, solid, Preact, React. Yeah, render. Yeah. So we have here a utility, and we are going to use a few of them. But for now, the render method, we can use it to render a specific component. In our case, it's going to be the edit component. And the edit component is available, is here. So we can import this component, we can render this component, and we can check. We can check a few things. For example, that the output is what is expected. And in order to do that, we can use a thing called snapshots. Let me save here. Yeah. The expect method has a matcher called to match snapshot. This is when we use this to match snapshot, Jest creates a snapshot of our edit component, and is stored internally, so it creates like a picture of our React component, and it compares every time that the output matches this specific snapshot. And these snapshots are usually tracked with Git version, so we can commit them to our remote repository, so we have a reference of what's the expected output of our React component. Okay, there are a lot of things here, so let's try to go step by step. The first thing that we are going to do is to create a mock of these properties. So for example, here, these are the props that our edit component, this is the props object that our edit component is going to receive. So what we can mock is the attributes, for example. We can create an initial set of attributes with some values to render this. We can create client ID. Then there is we have attributes, and then we have set attributes. For the set attributes, we are going to use a stub. Let me see. Here we have stub. Jest.fn. Jest.fn. Yeah, mock functions. Okay. So we can create mock functions, which are like spy functions. We, in our case, what we can do is to pass here as set attributes one of these mock functions, because these mock functions allow us to later check if the set attributes has been called, if it has been called with some parameters, and even sometimes we could also mock the return output, so we can control what's happening in our test. So let's go to our test and let's create mock edit props. We start with the attributes that can be this false, starting year blank. Then we can add set attributes, and this is going to be This is going to be a mock. This is going to be a mock. Then set attributes. We could also send client ID that we could just add our own and then class name that in our case is going to be the class that is assigned WP block copyright date. Then what we need to do is to import render from testing library React, and this library we need to install it. So let's go here. Let's go here and let's install this library. This library has other utilities that we can use later, but for now with the render I think that we are covered. Great. Let's check what this render component returns. So for now, we are going to add a describe edit component. It should render, okay, but the render we are going to const render output just for now, because we just want to check. Okay, and then we also need to import the edit component. Perfect. No. Const is equal render. Okay, we have some spam in the chat. Perfect. What else? I'm going to console log this. Console log render output. Okay, in this case, it should render. We have edit is not defined. Okay, because import edit from, let's check the edit component, export default function edit. So this edit should be fine. If we clear this and we run this, okay, then we have another issue. Is because we are calling the edit component, and the edit component, we are rendering the edit component, and the edit component internally is using a lot of elements from WordPress libraries. We need to also mock this. In order to mock this, Jest, let's go to Jest and the mock. Mocks folder. So we create manual mocks. Manual mocks are defined by writing a module in a mocks subdirectory immediately adjacent to the module. For example, to mock a module called user in the models directory, create a file called user.js and put it in the models mocks directory. So here, mocking node modules. If the module you are mocking is a node module, the mock should be placed in the mocks directory adjacent to the node modules. Okay, in our case, I think that we can directly add the mocks folder in the here in the test. So I'm going to create a mocks folder here, and this is like the test version of our node packages. So we need to create WordPress in the same way that we go to, where is it, the node modules. Okay, node modules. Why can't I see the node modules? Is filter somehow? Okay. Does anyone know why I cannot see the node modules folder? Okay, what I wanted to show is that inside the node modules folder, well, we can check it here. We can go to we can go to node modules and then WordPress module. And here we have all the WordPress modules that are installed. In our case, we are interested in these ones, block editor, and we have here we should have here a block editor. Don't we have here? Let me see the and components. Okay, they are not installed because, as I said, these are not really needed here. And internally, they are. There's a link done with the packages in the .vp global package. Perfect. So what we are going to do is to fake this, to mock these elements. We need to make this, this, and this. Let's start with the I18N. Here we can create a folder called WordPress, and inside this folder we can create a Y18N. Y18N.js. Okay. And we need to export two things. We just need to export this, that the a mock version of the of this underscore function, because we are dealing with node modules. We need to use this nomenclature of module exports, but the idea is the same, that we export just this. Okay, perfect. If we go now, if we run the tests now, cannot find module block editor from src edit, and we need to also mock the block editor. So let's create block editor, block editor.js, and the block editor we need to this. So for the use block props, what we are going to do this, and inspector controls is actually a React component. So we need to let's see if this works, because now what we can do is deep. We're going to data test ID. For now, I think that we need to add children, but I'm going to try to make this as simple as possible. Just to check that this error, we're not getting that error anymore, so it's properly mocking these functions, and then we need to also mock the components package, and here we are going to const panel body text control, exactly this panel body. We are going to add some test ID. Panel body text control. Okay. Okay, we need to use block props. So we are mocking this, but we need to return a function, an internal function, because this is being executed here. And I think we need to return something that can be spread. Let's check this. Yeah. So what we are going to do is to return a class name, because the use block props, if we check the documentation, in the block editor handbook, here in getting started, fundamentals of block development, the block wrapper, we can see that the use block props is actually adding a lot of attributes to the container tag element, and the most important one is the class, but there are also other attributes, attributes of the HTML element that are needed for the block editor. But the most important one is the main class of the component. Block editor use block props is not a function. Okay, because we are not exporting this, so we need to module exports. Yeah, this. Let's try to use the other version we're using. Use block props. Yes. This, yeah. So edit component should render. Expect Jest FN not to have locked. Mock function not to be called, but it was called with edit component Jest. Okay, where does this come from? So the edit component. Okay, let's create a proper function in the mock. That properly return one of the attributes that console log. Are we using this console log somewhere? Finding folder. Here. Expect edit component should render. Okay, let's ask explain me this. I see, because in the edit we added the console log props. Perfect. Thank you, cursor. Thank you. But what I wanted to check is that check the render output. But I cannot, console log should not be used unless explicitly expected. A ver, let me see. Can't I use Jest console in the tests? Okay, this is to check that the console logs are done properly, but I'm not interested in this. What I'm interested is in knowing the value of this. Okay, let's see if we can. Let's see if we can debug this. In order to debug this, what we can do let's see if in the scripts package, getting started, we go to the block development environment. So here in Unit.js, okay, one common use case for passing Node.js options is debugging your tests. Tests can be debugged by any inspector client that supports the Chrome DevTools protocol. Follow the instructions for debugging Node.js with your favorite supported browser or IDE. When instructions say to use Node whatever or Node whatever, npm okay, so here we have directly a set of utilities, so I'm going to copy and paste. Did we already do this? Let's go to packagation. No. Okay, so I'm going to add all of this, and we are going to npm run this. Okay, and now if we go to about inspect, we have this here. Right. So this is the process, and now what I'm interested in doing is in adding here a breakpoint. Let's repeat the process, inspect. There we go. This is undefined, but if I go one step, yeah, here I have the output of the render output. Here I have the output of the render output. And okay, so this is the HTML div element that is returned. We have base element as fragment, debug, find, but this is the element we are interested in, HTML div element. This is the rendered component. And what we can do is to compare this with a specific snapshot. So we are going to remove the breakpoint. It was a container, and what we are going to, it should match snapshot. It should match snapshot. So let's run the tests, and it has passed, but also as we can see here, there's a snapshot that has been created. We can remove this, and every time we run to match a snapshot for the first time, this snapshot is going to be created, but the second time the snapshot is going to be there. So any change in the structure of the React component that alters this output is going to make this test to fail because the snapshot is going to be different. We can update the snapshots in case we are intentionally changing the markup, but yeah, this is something that we need to take into account and also to store within our repository, because this is part of the tests. These are the pictures we are taking of the all React components that we are going to use to check that our React components work as expected. Okay, so we have made some progress, and let's try to make this a bit more interesting. And there's one thing we need to check, because right now by default the edit component, whenever it's rendering the blockator, is going to calculate the current year based on this class getFullYear toString. So we need to mock this to current year, and then display date. So this value that is displayed by our React component is calculated from here. So what we can do is to mock this. Let me put this edit component in open into the split right. Yeah, this is the edit component, and here is the edit component. So we want to this. We want to say global date, because global date is the when we run the tests, we run the tests in a Node environment. So in the browser, the global object is window, in Node is global, but they both have a date class, and we are going to fake this. We're going to make this. No, I'm interested in creating a new class that extends date, and we are only interested in the getFullYear method, and what we wanted to return is 2024. So now whenever we run our tests here, the edit component internally is going to have as current year value 2024 always for all the tests. So we can check that the final value corresponds to what we have set. For example, here current year is 2024. If fallback current year, that in our case is 2024, we can say if it's different, we do nothing here. What else? If this is set, that in our case is not set because this is false and this is empty. Display date is just current year. So display date should be 2024. So our edit component should have 2024 in the rendered content, and we can test that using another method of the library React that is called screen. With the screen object, let me see if we can. I'm going to close this in the Jest screen. No, screen getByText, for example. getByText. No, this is Jest. I want to here testing library screen no, getByText. 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 Okay, so we don't really need this screen. This should be available here as part of the object that is returned by render. So let's try that. Let's try that it actually that it displays current year by default. And what we are doing is container render edit mock edit props, and here we are also going to get the structure, the getByText, and we expect getByText. This is a regular expression, right? If we go to the documentation, getByText, getByText. Cheat sheet, getByText. Well, we can always ask, how does getByText work, for example? Okay. How does getByText work? I want to check if 2024 string appears in the rendered edit component, the rendered edit component. You pass it a string or a regular expression. Actually, this should be this. If we check, right? Because we have this, then a space, and then this. So this should be this. And okay. This has failed. Okay, what's happening is failing the first snapshot, because when we did the first snapshot, we didn't have this global date. So in the snapshot, the year is 2025, because it actually executed the date get full year, that right now it returns 2025. And then we come here, we can check this, that this is, but as we want to have a controlled environment, this should be 2024. So what can we do now? Well, we can do two things. We can remove the snapshots folder and recreate it again, or what we can do is to recreate the snapshots with the flag update snapshot. Okay, now we have another error. Unable to find an element with the text. Okay, because it's the copyright symbol and it's not the one that I passed. Edit component. Yeah, it's this one. And we are no, in this case we don't need to update the snapshots. So I'm going to do clear npm run test unit. Expect to be in the document is not a function, okay? Expect getByText okay. Let's ask cursor what does this mean, but I think we need another library called testing library Jest. The error indicates that the Jest testing environment doesn't recognize the to-be document matcher. This matcher is not built into Jest itself, but is provided by the testing library Jest library, which extends Jest's expect with helpful DOM specific assertions. To fix this, you need to import Jesting library Jest DOM. Okay, and this is not installed, right? Or it is? No, so we need to npm e-d Jest DOM. Then in our edit component, we are going to import. Okay, cursor has automatically added this, and now with this import we have extra matchers like the to be in the document one. And now if we run test unit, yay, it has passed all the tests. I'm interested in watching like the full output. npm let me see. Yeah, there is we can add here -verbose because I want to see all the tests that are passing. Perfect. So we have the blog registration, the edit component, and we are going, well, let's add a few more tests, and I think that we can grab the session. I'll do a quick summary, but I think that we have time to add another test before we finish. So the test we are going to add is So what we can check now is that the inspector control panel is being rendered as well. And because we have mocked this component here, we should expect a component, a div with this test ID. So what we can check is that a div with this test ID exists. That's all. And maybe we can also yeah, because inspector controls, yeah, we can make this a bit more elegant, and we can actually make this, because we have panel body with title and we can make this a bit more complicated, but okay, but I mean, we could fake this to be a component that actually gets the title and returns a div with this title, and we could check that the inspector controls is rendered, and also that internally there is a panel body component rendered with this specific title. But to simplify things, I'm going just to check that the inspector controls here is rendered. This is that there is a div with data test ID rendered. We can just check that. So the edit component test can be well, before doing that, we also need to make sure that the tests are cleaned after every execution, after every eat, that we start with a clean state. One thing that we can do is mock edit props this, and then so we do const original date is equal global date, and here in describe beforeEach global date. And beforeEach, what I want to do is that mock edit props set attributes is equal, no, mock clear. We can do this. Before each test, we are going to clear the mock. If there has been an execution of this, we need to reset the state of this mock, because if we have called this with some attributes and some arguments, we don't want that to be taken into account for the next test. So we do this, we do the mock clear, and then we define the global date, and after each we restore the original date. I think this is a good, perfect. And now the last thing we can do is to check the settings panel, like a very quick test here. It displays the settings panel. It displays the settings panel, but it renders settings panel. And what we are going to check here is that we get the HTML of the edit component with these mocked attributes, and what we are going to check is that, so here we need get test by ID, get no, here get by test ID, get by test ID, get by test ID queries. Is this a render? Render result. The render method returns an object that has a few properties: container, base element, debug, render, amount of fragment, and queries. The most important feature of render is that the queries from DOM testing library are automatically returned with their first argument bound to the base element with the false document body. So we should be able to maybe also get by test ID. In the same way that we can get by text, I guess that we can get by test ID. And what we can do is to check if there is an element. We have added this test ID. Inspector controls. To be true. To be in the document. To be in the document. Renders inspector controls, just to be more accurate. Okay, so that's what we have so far. I think that we can call it a session. Before we finish, I would like to summarize more or less what we've done here. Let's do a quick summary of what we've done here. So we have tested the copyright date block component, which is the one that is available in the block editor handbook in the tutorial of first block, and we have added some tests for this block. We have used the WP scripts test unit.js command to launch the test, because with this package we have available automatically all the tools we need to run unit tests, and there are some scripts that we can add to help us with this development. The most important one is WP scripts test unit JS, because this is the command that is going to launch the tests. What is going to launch is the files with the suffix test.js that are in the test folder, and we have created two tests. The first one is block registration, the second one is edit component. Block registration is testing that the block is properly registered. In order to do that, we have used these methods from the WordPress blocks package that we need to install as a dependency, because we need these methods for the tests. So we have used register block type and create block. In order to properly use create block, we need to register the block type, which we are doing at the beginning of each test, and at the end of each test we are unregistering. So what we are checking here is that the block is properly registered and that we can create the block, that it properly handles the attributes as they are defined in the block.json, and also that the block.json contains the proper support configuration. And then we have also tested the edit component. In order to do that, we have done a few things. We have imported the edit component. We have also created initial state of the tests that, for example, we are ensuring that the global date, that the getFullYear method of the global date always returns the same year, and we are restoring for the default global date. We have also defined the mock edit props with some values which we are using to render the edit component. And for each render, we are checking a few things. In order for this render to work, we also have had to mock some of the libraries that are being used by the edit component. So the edit component is using these packages and these elements, and we have created mocks for these libraries. Like, for example, we have mocked use block props, we have mocked inspector controls component, and we have also mocked these other components. So with this environment properly created for the tests, we have added the following tests. We have checked that the edit component, when rendered with these mocked props, it returns an expected snapshot. And we have also covered what this snapshot thing means. So the first time the too much snapshot is run, there is a snapshot created in the folder, and the second time it's this method is just going to compare the output of the render method with the existing snapshot. Then we have checked that with these attributes and with this mocked global date, the rendered component contains this year, this copyright year text in the output of the rendered component. And then the final test we have added is to check that the inspector controls component is properly rendered, and we have done that by checking that our mocked component, and our mocked component is defined here. It's just a div with a test ID. We are just testing that the output contains a component with this test ID, and we have done that with the getTestMate. Great. So yeah, this has been an introduction of unit tests. I think that we can continue this session with more tests, more complex, and also we still need to test the save.js. So yeah, I think that we can do that in the following session in English. But for now, I think that we have enough. So yeah, again, you have all these sessions available in YouTube. Let's check this here. Yeah, in Juanma codes, in streams, have all the sessions that I've been doing. Also in this repository streams, you have all the sessions with the details of each session, including the diagrams and specific documentation that we have shown in the session. And yeah, I think that's all for today. Enjoy the weekend. Have a nice end of this Friday, and yeah, see you in the next session.